This week we're not working alone. Moa is here with us from Sweden, where she is renovating an old schoolhouse all by herself. And like us, she's using traditional materials like linseed old paint and lime mortar, the kind of materials that belong in old buildings. And she has her own YouTube channel on which she shares her projects and her journey. And she'll be joining us here for the next 7, 8 days.
The main project for this week is pointing the facade. Pointing by hand with a hawk, trowel and pointing trowel is the traditional way of working with lime mortar. You push the mortar into the joints, beat it with a stiff brush to compact it, and then brush the surface so the aggregate shows. Exposing the aggregate gives the mortar more texture, which helps it shed water and weather more evenly over time. It takes a bit of patience, but it gives you full control over the finish and a result that feels right for these walls.
In the beginning, she would like hiss at Nancy, she would like implode, she was very scared. She got used to us pretty quickly, but with the vet, for example, the vet always had a hard time with her at the beginning. And now she's like the sweetest. So she learned how to trust. Yeah. It took a while, but I can also imagine, when you're dumped like that, then you also, why would you trust humans?
And who knows what happened before.
Exactly, yeah.
I think it's the grouting that we ordered.
Can I see?
Yeah.
Also, it's a very thick material.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And that's my mortar bag, and it's already empty. 'Cause if you fill it more, it just comes squeezing
Out the back.
out at the back. It already does that. So I think what happened is because I didn't use this bag for 5 seconds, the mortar that was still in there dried up enough to clog the nozzle. But now I have liquid slush that I have to use up. So another bag it is. It doesn't adhere to the stones well, and if I need to trowel it in and put my bag aside for a bit, then the bag clogs. So it doesn't work if you have interruptions. Oh, see, it's already clogged again. Yeah, 100% don't recommend. Unless you enjoy having nervous breakdowns for hobby.
Yeah, I do.
Maybe you should have a go then. And also the nozzle is too wide to get into the small openings, and if I use the smaller nozzle, nothing at all comes out because the grit in the mortar is too big to fit through. So it looks like it goes faster, but it doesn't really go faster. Because the mortar has to be wetter to pass through the bag, it actually doesn't stick as well. Too much water interferes with the chemical bonding, stopping the lime from hydrating properly and creating a weaker joint. The extra water also causes the sand and lime particles to separate, so the mortar loses cohesion and becomes too fluid to hold its shape. Over time, the wetter mix creates a more porous structure, which can crack as it dries up. On top of that, you can't press in the small stones that give these walls their character. They just fall out, especially when filling bigger holes. By the time the mortar has set enough to hold them, you've forgotten which stone belonged in which hole, and the joints end up bigger and flatter, so the wall loses some of its detail. I first used a pointing bag last year when we were installing the barn windows. Those window reveals were so tight that it was nearly impossible to get in with a trowel, so the bag was the only way. Trying it again here just confirms to me what I already knew. For larger areas of wall like this, it isn't a good method for us. There we are again. It's stuck. come on! But so our buckets are always empty around the same time. So you definitely are not slower with the trowel than I am with the pointing bag.
But I do hear less cursing to my right.
Now it's only going to ever work this if there's two people working together on the same section. So one person is piping it in and the other one is doing the troweling. Because otherwise you're always running behind on your own troweling. You know what I mean.
That's the spirit.
See, and when you're too fast with troweling, you have sludgy. Ugh. Normally, pointing is something that I really enjoy doing. I find that it's almost meditative. But with the pointing bag, it suddenly becomes stressful. Nothing really goes the way that you want it to go. The mortar doesn't stick very well to the stone. It keeps falling out. It's difficult to put small stones into the wet mortar. And you're always rushing to trowel your mortar in time before it sets. Brushing it in time before it gets too hard. But also rushing to be done with troweling and brushing fast enough before the mortar inside your piping bag sets, which is virtually impossible if you leave the piping bag for just a minute even. You have to begin with unclogging the tip. And on top of all of that, it's also harder work, I find. It doesn't look like it, but squeezing that mortar bag is hard work on your hands. It's much harder than, for me anyway, much harder than just holding a hook and a trowel. And this needs to be sustainable because we've got 100 square meters of facade, just this wall to do. And we'd like to get it finished before winter. So if I'm going to do this in a way that hurts my hands, then that's not gonna happen. It's also not faster. I mean, the only part of the work that is faster is filling the joints. But the troweling takes as much time, the brushing takes as much time. And you lose time because you need to fill your piping bag, you need to unclog the tip every 10 or so minutes. And you also have to clean it so that it's ready to use the next time. So we've compared, and Moa and I made the same amount of progress today. We usually work with 5 kilos of mortar per bucket. We found that's a good amount to get the mortar all processed before it starts to set. And we finish our 5 kilo buckets around the same time. So there's really no gain that we have found from using a piping bag. The reason why we took quite some time today to show you how frustrating that process is because we got, I didn't count them, but we got tens and tens and tens of comments both on YouTube and on Instagram of people saying, yeah, do you know that there's also a mortar piping bag? And yes, I know. I probably know every tool under the sun that's been used in at least Western countries to fill joints between stones. And while there are people who do prefer working with the piping bag, I'm not one of those people.
Cookies from the bakery.
These have hazelnuts, so
not for me
these are
then.
not for you, and also not for you. The other ones should be fine.
How it is for my own children.
Malanacha! I'm so bad at taking out plants that still have potential. I'm going to have to step over you. Maybe I'd better do this. What was your initial motivation when you started your YouTube channel? Was it?
It was. I think I would get any volunteers.
Ah.
So I thought maybe I could, make this work look fun.
If we have a mild winter like last year, then I think I can grow things all year round because it's not been very cold. Which is cool, growing things year round without a greenhouse. That's
Yes, it is. But there aren't many things that you can do that in Sweden. But so many people also do I guess you could call them warm benches. So we have raised beds and a
Yeah.
glass above, and that's easy to put here if you have
Yeah.
extra windows that
Yeah.
you can't use
Yeah.
for something.
Yeah, I was hoping, but I'm not sure if we'll have the time to build a few of those. I think we call them cold frames, gardekas. So it's like a not heated greenhouse that's very small.
Yeah.
And we have the doors upstairs. There used to be glass where now the plywood is,
Yeah, that's true.
and that glass could be used to
Yeah.
to turn into a cold frame. I would really like that.
Layer out of so this thing is part of it, not the herring. Let's rip it off completely this time.
Off we go.
Many of you have suggested we use other tools like a caulking gun, a drill attachment for mortar, or even a pressure pointing machine. The reality is, with the consistency and grit size of lime mortar that we use, those would simply not work, or at least not be ideal. The caulking gun in particular would be a disaster. The aggregate in this type of mortar is too coarse to squeeze through the nozzle, and the tubes are so narrow that they would be an absolute pain to fill. There are special lime mortars formulated to flow through caulking guns, but they cost 3 times as much as the mortar that we're using, and are usually intended for finer work, interiors, grouting natural stone floors, or small decorative joints.
Je kan nu even de kwaliteitscontrole doen.
The aggregate in mortar is important for the structural strength of the wall. Finer mortars with little or no aggregate are less strong and less durable, which makes them unsuitable for large exterior pointing like this. The same goes for drill extensions. They're only suited for mortars with fine aggregate mixed very liquid. Everyone I've seen use them also says that they easily clog up. Big pressure pointing machines are another option, but we haven't found one for rent locally. That said, to make them work, you'd need a much more liquid mix, just like with all the other alternatives, which is annoying to work with for all the reasons I mentioned yesterday, plus increases the risk of cracking.
Dinner's ready.
Everything is a little bit different. Like with the butter, it felt a little bit different, and the milk felt a little bit different, but
Don't worry if it's not one pretty piece.
Yeah, somehow it needed a little bit stronger, but the flavors are still there.
That's nice.
Thanks for cooking.
No worries. I'm gonna cook for days.
it here?
Maybe put it next to Isis
Yeah.
because I think I'm gonna have to retire to the shade and cool down.
Ah, yes.
I'm a Nordic Viking. I'm not made for these temperatures. But I would complain just as much if this was snowy and cold.
This week we pointed about 1/6 of the facade. Just the section above the lintels we're keeping for in a few weeks because we first still have to scrape off some old paint from the wood. The lintels themselves are in fairly good condition except for some surface weathering. Most of them anyway. There's a few. For example, the one above the new hayloft doors is in a more critical shape. We will have to replace that one in the future, but the reason why we're waiting with that is because we're going to make new doors, balcony doors with glass windows for those in the future. And we might also change the width a bit, so it makes very little sense to do that now with then potentially having to redo it later when we renovate that space. The core is still solid, so it's not like the building will collapse if we don't tackle that immediately. And in the meantime, it's nice to have a facade that looks cared for instead of crumbling. And looking back on the alternatives, the pointing bag, the caulking gun and the pressure pointing machine, and none of those really make a lot of sense for us. They don't save enough time that we think the downsides are worth it. And some of them are just not suited for the type of lime mortar that we are working with. Moa said something this week that has really stayed with me, and that's that many renovations are more about the end result because people renovate to sell or because people renovate to be done with renovating. And projects like ours are about the process more than anything. So rushing doesn't fit into all of this. It needs to be sustainable and enjoyable. And the best solution is what's going to be best for the wall and best for us.